Well, if the producer wants to fill out their own applications, if the producer wants to have no differentiation provided because there's no money there for it, if the producer wants to be a self-contained business within this environment, then go after the place that has a high commission rate.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Caldwell, and I have Randy Schwantz with me today, and we are talking about the future of insurance, the future of insurance distribution. And I'm sure that most of you know Randy, or at least you've heard about Randy and his company, the Wedge Group, and his seminal book and sales technique, the Wedge. And Randy, I just have to say that 20 some odd years ago, you made a big impact on me and really helped me as a commercial insurance agent, for which I don't want to miss the opportunity to tell you thank you. I'm sure you hear that a lot. And as a book author myself, it's fun to hear that people actually read the darn thing and didn't just buy it. So anyway, right. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And so, Randy, you've written 5 books now, and I think some of them are behind us or behind you on the wall. So Agency Growth Machine, Grit, and Fired, along with the Wedge. And you also coach individually, and I think in groups, lots and lots of really successful commercial insurance agents. So anyway, I was asking, how long you've been at this process of helping take ordinary insurance producers and make them great.
Yeah, since March of 1992. So it's 29 years here pretty soon.
Okay. And I was fascinated to read your biographical sketch on LinkedIn where, you did a few weeks in college and said, okay, that's enough for me. And I'm going to go invent this life myself. And you learned the hard way, developed a lot of cool techniques and have been at it ever since.
Yeah, you could even say that 2 weeks at school was a bit of an exaggeration. It was more Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday. And even at that, it was only one class per day. So yeah, it turned out not to be my thing. And, and frankly, it's kind of cool because, those things prepare us. I mean, different things prepare us for different things in life. And sometimes hardship is what makes you tough and stuff like that. If you can make it through it, you come out better on the backside, and knock on wood, I did.
Well, I just think there's a great, delicious irony that here's a guy that dropped out of college after 2 weeks. And by the way, I don't think I attended any classes at all in my first 2 weeks of college. I don't, but anyway, and becomes a professional educator of professionals. So anyway, I'm really happy that you're with me today, and you've had really a great view into the development of the insurance distribution industry, particularly in commercial lines, for several decades now. And I think there's probably nobody better suited to tell us what professional, success-oriented insurance agents need to do to be successful in the future. So let's just start with that. I mean, I'm curious. We're looking at the next 3 to 5 years in. This is probably going to be the 3 to 5 years that are most impactful in maybe the last 20 or 30, in my view, in insurance distribution. But I'm curious what you think about the next 3 to 5 years in that regard.
Well, and my scope is just around the whole producer force. I mean, agencies have to continue to hire, train, and manage. I mean, that will never go away. I don't believe that technology is ever going to replace producers in the commercial environment. I mean, I was thinking about it, a lot of the commercials we watch on TV where you'll see some sort of financial planning firm, TD Ameritrade or Schwab or somebody, and they're talking about helping with financial planning to customers. Well, everything they could get from that person is basically online. You could get your hands on it, but people still want advice in areas that has iffiness associated with it. So in this world of commercial insurance, there's still a lot of iffiness that people want to go. They want a human they can have a conversation with. And so therefore, I don't see people ever going away. But what I do see is, all sorts of technologies coming in that's going to make it easier for both parties, both the producer and the buyer, to have a better outcome.
And what do you mean by a better outcome?
Better outcome is a buyer being able to control their costs and have certainty around the what ifs. just like right now, I got Alexa over here, and I could go, or Siri on my phone and go, hey, Siri, let me ask you a question. If this driver had a bus accident, boom, 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 what's my liability? And without having to talk to an agent, I'll be able to get a lot of those answers. And so that will give me a better outcome. But I'll still want to verify, validate certain things through people. And so I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think in many ways it's going to get easier. I got two companies I'm working with right now. One is getting great at data mining, and that's more for small commercial and personal lines to be able to take monoline, get it out, do marketing to it, and work to convert them. Another one's doing AI where they're transcribing conversations. And here's what's interesting, Tony, is the most untapped, richest data that an agency has are these phone conversations. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to pull that out, tag it, and be able to take action on it, it's going to be another huge, thing associated with technology that's going to make a lot of things better for a lot of people.
So, things like that you just described are going to help make us smarter, I think. There'll be more actionable intelligence. But one of the things that I'm convinced is, to your point that you mentioned earlier about what clients or customers want, they still want around iffiness. They want to know that they can trust somebody. They can look somebody in the eye and feel like there's a human-to-human connection and that person's taking care of them, right?
Right.
And so to me, I feel like the future for the producer especially is doing what we've always done, which is develop great relationships. But what this technology does is it takes all the drudgery away from us, right? And if you take the drudgery away, and by that I mean filling out, applications and doing research with, what company and what form and all that kind of stuff, all that can be done like in the background. And it just gives us more time to focus on the relationship itself. And really, that's where you've been for 30 years. If you're talking to a prospect, you're really looking for, those points of difference. So, when your agent came out and he showed you the Modmaster report, how'd that go, right? I mean, those kinds of questions are really designed to show the prospect that maybe he doesn't have the relationship that he thought he did. And so it seems like this really for your clients gives you much, much more bandwidth for success going forward than even in the past. What do you think about that?
Yeah, either much, much more or the same, right? I mean, and the reason I say that is as bandwidth increases, in one way, it's going to increase for their competitor. So it always has been and always will be in this side of it, I believe, is the 80-20 rule or some crazy number like that's going to play, because there's a certain small group of agency leaders that are like coaches on a team. I mean, I relate building a producer force a lot like any sort of athletic team. Head coach, playbook, you got to have strong practices. You in practice, you're beating each other up, right? I mean, it's not just mental, is you're going after each other and you're preparing to go get into the battle and win the game. So there's a small group of agency owners that believe that and are willing to follow through and do it. And it's that group of people, as a general rule, that will build strong sales teams and then build to exploit everybody else's weakness and build to grow big, great agencies, make a lot of money. And that's just, as I look across and I talk to hundreds of agency owners every year, of which a small group are prepared to go do that. And the other group, it's funny how many people I've heard from about every 3 years with the same problem, and they're afraid to make a decision, pull the trigger and go do something great for themselves. And then they get bought out by a PE firm and just get morphed up into a marshmallow, right? So,
yeah, I want to come back to PE firms in just a minute, but you said something that just reminded me of something. So the great actor Sean Connery, passed away just a few days ago.
Yeah,
and lots of people are writing about Connery and the James Bond franchise and all this kind of stuff. And I was reminded though of a different movie, The Untouchables, about Elliot Ness, and he plays this quintessential hard-bitten Irish beat cop in Chicago. And if you remember the movie, it's getting really tough and people are getting killed and it's getting really serious. And he says to the Elliot Ness, his character says to Elliot Ness, "What are you prepared to do?" It's one of my favorite questions of all time, not just the movies. And it's really the question that agency owners have to ask themselves, not just in the future, but they've always had to ask themselves. And you're bringing that up, which is, what are you prepared to do?
Right.
What are you going to do to take your own success by the collar and deal with it? So you don't think that changes?
How could it change? I mean, you just go back. I mean, we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with emotional beings. We're dealing with belief sets about what can be done, what can't be done. And when you start to stack enough of that evidence, if you get the guy that never has been able to break out, then he's actually created a coalition of others who can't break out, and they sit there and commiserate about how you can't break out. And then you go get the Sabans, the Dabo Sweeneys, the Coach K's. Belichick's getting his butt kicked this year, but I promise you he'll be back, right? You get those guys that figure out how to build a franchise, develop a team, do things, and it's a smaller group. It has always been that way, will always be that way. And what's interesting about that is that in spite of a small group that are really, really good and a big, large group of mediocrity, that industries continue to keep going and it just keeps working out and all this sort of stuff. So that's just another way to say there's a place for everybody. There's a place for the great. There's generally a place for the mediocre, and there's a place for the bad. It just depends on what you want, right?
I love that. I mean, it depends on what you want. So I have a business coach, Dan Sullivan, who's written a book, Wanting What You Want. And he talks about how that's really the fundamental place to begin with in any entrepreneurial journey. And you make that decision. So really, you're making the point that the agency owner makes that decision. They make the decision to be mediocre or worse, or they make the decision to be great. And it comes back to Sean Connery this question, what are you prepared to do about it? So that doesn't change.
And by the way, Dan Sullivan's got a new book out, which you probably know about, and it's not how, but who. It's like this book right here on grit. That's a book on hiring producers.
Yep.
Most agencies are really bad at that, and it's in the numbers. You can't hide from it. The worst agencies are maybe 2 out of 10. The best agencies, Reagan put out a report that I saw a couple of years ago, was at 84% or 8.5 out of 10. Well, the difference between 8.5 and 2 is 6.5, right? I mean, I can do the math. It's a huge amount of money and failure and loss. And so the guys that are doing well, there's no secret to it. It's a hiring process. It's tough on the vetting element. So you got to be good recruiting. You really got to vet. You got to get into the psyche. And I don't think I coined this word, but I think about hiring as an evidence-based process. Mm-hmm. It's like if we were hiring a professional baseball player or pitcher, you wouldn't ask the guy, "Hey man, are you a good pitcher?" Of course he'd say yes. You'd put him on the mound, make him throw, put a radar gun on him, make him throw a fastball, curveball, slider ball, boom, boom, boom. You put him with a physical therapist, make him boom, boom. You put him with the MRI, go through all that stuff. Then you put him with the sports psychologist. And if he makes it through all that and you got evidence, give the guy a contract. If he fails at any one of those places, don't give the guy a big contract. Well, when you hire producers the same way, you end up hiring really, really talented people. Well, now you take talented people and you onboard them well. In other words, you train them, mm-hmm. You teach them differentiation, you teach them how to make cold calls, and you set up a platform to manage that performance or get them out. Those guys grow agencies. So that's where you go back to Dan's book, Who, Not How. You get the right who in, then the how also kicks in, right?
Right. Yeah, and the genius of that question, though, by the way, is that how promotes procrastination, because we don't know how, so we don't ever get started, and you just learn to ask a different question, right? Which is who can do this? Who? So if you're an agency owner and you've had a lot of failure in the past in hiring producers, instead of trying to figure out how to do it, really you need to be thinking about who could do it for you, right? That's the idea. And of course, so I'm just curious, but I mean, do you hire producers or do you just train
them? Yeah. So we definitely train them. And for the most part, I teach people how to hire, right? And then for some clients, we assist them in that process. But that came from in Fort Worth, Texas, over a decade, helping a firm that was when we started out, they were a $4 million firm. 10 years later, a $30 million revenue firm. So it went from 4 to 30 million. And you know these guys really well. Half of that was organic and half of it was acquisition. Helped them hire. And the point is, I helped them hire 34 people, 29 made it. Amazing track record. So I just reverse engineered that whole process and then wrote that book. And that's what I'm teaching people how to do. And I got agency owner after agency owner that says in a nice, polite way, man, thank you. Because every time we avoid a hiring mistake, we just save $50,000 to $100,000. So my return on investment is enormous, right? Enormous.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned private equity firms a few minutes ago, and obviously there's been acquisitions and mergers in the insurance agency space for 30 years. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop. But the last 5 or 6 years have been truly extraordinary. And I've read and have talked to several people who really think that we're down now to 4 or 5 years of inventory in terms of investable insurance agencies. And what appears to be happening is that the middle's getting hollowed out. So you're getting a lot of really big agencies through acquisition, and you're getting a lot of startups. People are leaving those bureaucratic organizations that are being created, starting their own organizations. But in the middle, we've kind of beginning to lose this, what we would typically see as a, $1 million, $2 million, maybe $5 million revenue agency cornerstone anchoring a community. And so I'm curious what you think and what you're seeing in your work is, you think the big keep getting bigger and we're going to just permanently lose this middle ground, or is it going to be backfilled by new startup agencies over the next decade or so?
All I can give you is kind of my evidence, what's happening. As we continue to boost up our marketing, the people, we're attracting a lot of those, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million shops, which historically I never really dealt with much. I mean, I was, there was one point I dealt with 55 of the top 100 agencies that year. I mean, that was my niche. But, things go through cycles. And with COVID and all that sort of stuff, now I'm seeing a whole bunch of these, like I talked to 800,000, 1.2 million, both conversations a little while ago. Small shops that now see the vision of what they could do, and they're looking for a way to go get there. I think there's going to be a lot of that. You look at them as a general rule, some generalizations. They're attracting a lot of no-growth agencies. I mean, that's what they've got. And so then they've aggregated up $1 billion, $1.5 billion, $2 billion, and it's still by definition a no-growth firm. So it seems to me that they'll be taken out by one of the public companies here before long. And so then you'll get bigger biggers. And then once again, you'll see a big banana peeling off, and because they all know how to do it, and come back and somehow they'll regenerate, and there'll be a new cycle that all kick in.
Yeah, I have a friend who's in the M&A business, and he makes the point, he goes, buyers have to buy. And so as the inventory of really high quality agencies shrinks, they've still got to, it's like a shark has to swim and eat, right? So they're going to be buying more and more of these, mediocre, low growth, low performance agencies. So with that going on over the next, if there's 4 or 5 years of those kinds of deals left in front of you, it sounds like to me, this is an awesome time if you're a smaller agency to really accelerate. Is that how you're seeing it with your clients?
Whether the 4 to 5 year inventory, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it is whatever it is. And I'm not in that game enough to play and know how long it's going to last or anything. I do agree with you. So many of the middle market agencies have been gutted. That number is so low. The report I saw the other day was 650 to 700 acquisitions this year. Same last year, same year before. So that's 2,800 by and large reported agencies that we know have got to be in the range of $2,000 to $6,000, $8,000, $8 million in revenue.
Right.
They just gutted it right out. But whether they do or don't, an astute, driven, quote unquote, young agency owner that can see a 10, 15, 20-year vision of what life could be like has really they got the bull by the horns. I mean, there's nothing in their way to go do extraordinary things. I talk to them all the time. And when it comes to differentiation, I mean, the reason I got this stuff on my table back here is the red, white, and blue really represents. The blue is our producer. The guy in the middle is the buyer, and the guy in red is the incumbent. And then all those the little cones over there I got, or the Legos, really represent potential differentiation. And it is still true, even after the Wedge having been out there for, it was published in 97, I think. And it's still selling like hotcakes. I'm pretty amazed, but it sells really well. That still the majority of agencies are the price coverage relationship agencies. Their godfather told them to sell that way, and they're still listening to the godfather. And so the ability to go out and exploit their weaknesses and grow great agencies, it's an amazing opportunity for those people who've got that drive.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to hear you say that. I mean, I think that the agency has a bigger future than its past. And obviously we're fellow travelers in that regard. So I am curious, though. I mean, do you see that? You mentioned differentiation, and so I'm a big believer in niche or target marketing. And today we're having this conversation on Zoom, where we might have done it, in person, 6 or 8 months earlier than today. Right. But I think, a year ago, nobody knew what Zoom was, and you tended to operate. A community was really defined as a geographical thing. And I think we're rapidly beginning to see that a community can be anything you want it to be, and it's not limited by geography. So I'm curious what you're seeing agents doing with this new technology. Do you see a lot of guys going, okay, you're in North Carolina, but it's no big deal to sell insurance in California, Washington State, or back in Dallas in your old hometown? Do you see that as a coming thing? And how does that really begin to change the nature of how we sell, market, and distribute insurance at the agency level?
Well, I see. So there's 2 questions in that. One is, yes, for a producer, I'm not limited by geography at all anymore. Mm-hmm. What they're limited by is their mindset. And it's interesting how many of them are still yearning to get back out where they can get face-to-face, and they're resisting getting good at this type of technology, making virtual sales calls, using the tools. I mean, I've done several on how to make virtual sales calls. That's how I've been selling for my 25 years. Most of it's been virtual like this. Mm-hmm. And there's a set of tools they ought to get used to using. It's just not that hard. That would make everything so easy for them. Some want to do it, but a lot of them resist because they think it's all about getting eyeball to eyeball with people. And that's just a mental mistake that is going to prevent them from having the success they want. So that's the producer. A few will do well. A bunch are resisting it. But what's also interesting is this. I've had conversations with 2 young guys recently. Both of them are in their, I'm going to say mid to late 30s. One guy hired, I think he's in Atlanta. He hired a guy in Denver. I think he hired somebody in Maryland. I think he hired somebody down in South Carolina or something. And the epiphany he had is, in this world, why can I not have a virtual sales force?
Right.
Had another guy call me that's out of Nashville. That this dude was a startup. I'm guessing 4 years ago or something like that. Raised a little bit of money, and now has already built a $5 million revenue agency.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he's just smoking it. And he called me up and said, Randy, same as I know you know a lot of people. What I want to do is I'm willing to create little LLCs and give people a chance to own part of the firm. And I see it being all over the country. Why not? And I go, I don't have a reason why not. I think you could do that. So I see that the Zoom and the virtuality and the ability to be anywhere, anytime, any place opens up a lot of doors, both for producers and agency owners in that regard. You don't have to have your sales team under your feet anymore.
Yeah, if you're managing by taking attendance, this is a terrible thing for you. If that's how you. But if you're measuring, success by what you got done, the tools are already there. So you have, Slack, Teams, Zoom. You have all these tools for staying in touch with people. I'm on a agents council for one of the larger commercial carriers in the country, and we were having a conversation, I don't know, last month before, and we were asked by folks on the company side, like, what do you guys see the differences? Because what we see is two kinds of agents over the last 6 or 8 months. There are some who are just killing it. They're killing it. And then there's a bunch of, so as a friend of mine said, there's people who are kicking ass and those who are getting their asses kicked. So right. Didn't put it quite like that. But the point is, she sees two different kinds of commercial agents right now. One, to your point, they're just sort of hanging on, waiting for this to be over in a year or 2 or 3, which it could take that long, by the way, if you talk to the vaccine manufacturers. And others are not waiting. They're just jumping out there, changing tactics and strategy to use the virtual tools at their disposal, and are killing it. So, it seems to me, and I'm curious what you think, that really you mentioned mindset earlier. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine in London whose work is all around adaptability, and he can measure it really. And you talked about evidence-based. I mean, they developed a lot of things to measure adaptability.
Right.
It seems like the faster we move going into the future, the more adaptability becomes really, really critical. And yet, basic sales skills don't change because it's just about connecting with people.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, so adaptability, in my opinion, for the most part, it's obviously a mental game that anybody can do, but not anybody will. Right? Anybody can do, but not anybody will. It's almost like adaptability on your golf swing. Almost everybody has the physical ability to move differently and change a golf swing, but not everybody's willing to do that, to take the lessons and work on it to get better. So it's the mindset that leads to adaptability. And so I just keep, like the podcast I do, and I'll just make a quick plug. It's called Agency Growth Machine. And you can find it on, iTunes and Stitcher and all those kind of places. Mm-hmm. But most of those are, honestly, me just getting on there, and they've all been solo for the most part, but just getting on there and talking through different mindset type of stuff. Because frankly, I tell dudes, mostly dudes, when I'm having a conversation with them, prospects, I go, look, if you've got the ability to make decisions, then you can grow a big agency. If you struggle to make decisions, then you're going to struggle to hire producers. You're going to struggle to fire bad guys. You're going to struggle with making technologies, but you're just going to struggle with everything. And so, interesting enough, a decision is a mindset based upon, if you got too much fear driving you, you'll procrastinate. If you don't, you'll make the decision, move on. And then if it doesn't work out, you'll adapt and go. When you look at the world at large, or agencies at large, or our business at large, as well as all others, some are in environments that they get challenged and they like it. Others are environments where they don't want to be challenged, and it becomes this mediocre groupthink. And that, to me, you can just almost draw a line between those two things and know who's going to play big and who's not.
So it doesn't matter what technology comes along. It doesn't matter whether people want to buy their insurance, on the internet. It's how you think about it that's going to determine your success.
Yeah. And, I've been doing a series on the book Think and Grow Rich. The book was written back in 1960.
That's Napoleon Hill. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's in the public domain. And so if anybody wants a copy, you can go to my website, thewedge.net/TGR, download a copy. And I'm working people through that because it goes back to that, as a man thinketh, so is he, right? Yep. And if you can change the thinker, then you will change the thinking, and you'll see things different and you'll be able to prosper. If you don't, you get stuck in your little tiny box about the way things are and you can't progress out of it. So then once you change your thinking, then you also, part of that thinking leads you to go find resources to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? The right kind of technology, the right kind of agency management system. Somebody teach me how to hire. Somebody teach me how to prospect better. Teach me how to do these things. But I got to be open and believe in I can do that, get that outcome. And it's just amazing to me how I saw it when I was a kid growing up on a farm out in Lubbock, Texas. One farmer, you see two fields right adjacent to each other. One field, the rows were plowed straight. The cotton was beautiful. There were no weeds in it. The field right adjacent to it, short cotton, weeds everywhere, hadn't been plowed well, whatever. It happened with farmers then. It's happened with farmers today. It happened with insurance agents then. It's happened with insurance agents today. It's just a repetition of everything that started 5 million years ago, probably, or whenever humanity first cranked it up.
Many years ago, so Dan Sullivan again, he used to say it's easier to grow 10 times than 2 times. And I asked him, I said, so surely you're speaking metaphorically. And I got a real hour of nonstop Dan after that. But the point is, if you're trying to grow 10 times instead of 2 times, you got to do everything differently. You have to throw the book out and start over and think. You got to think differently. And I remember when I came back convinced that that's what we wanted to do. And I had a team meeting and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to grow 10 times. Everybody eyes rolled and, heavy breathing and all that stuff. None of those people work for us anymore, by the way, but we're also 10 times bigger. And so, we're on our third 10 times sprint, and it's just really setting a bigger vision. So I'm the chairman of a small community bank, and we're doing planning. And so, I said, hey, I want to grow 10 times. It's funny because it's the same thing all over again. Linear thinkers really struggle with this idea that you can decide what your future is going to be, and it will happen. The act of deciding what your future will be is actually the thing that makes it happen. Everything else just shows up after that. Has that been your experience? It's been mine. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to do the work. You have to believe that that's possible. And that's why Dan has 3,000 or 4,000 members rather than 300,000 or 400,000 members in his deal. That even though it's all true, it's still an elite club of people who are willing to step out, think that way, start to work on it, and let it happen. Hire the right people, get rid of the wrong people, and do that. And so now we go back to inside of an agency. You call up an agency owner, they call you. You go, well, yeah. How many producers you guys have? And they always laugh. Well, it depends on what you want to call a producer. Mm-hmm. Well, a producer is a guy that's probably hitting, a guy or gal that's doing 75 to 125,000 new business year after year after year. Somebody down around that 25,000 range, we're going to call them account manager. Now, how many producers do you have? Well, we've got 2 out of how many? 10. All right. So that's a who problem, right? Then you get down to a decision. Well, what are you going to do with all those people that don't produce? What do you do with that? And those are all the tough decisions that if the environment is not right, the environment inside their head, their brain swimming around in that salt water or whatever they say it is, right? That's environment number 1. Environment number 2 becomes this external environment. Unless those environments are not right, or unless they are right, I mean, they're frozen in place. And so this industry, probably like most, has been frozen in place for 100 years. And there's a few people that go jump in the oven, thaw it out, and go make it happen. And so I don't know why, when I sit there and think about that, I don't know why we'd ever be surprised by that. And then guys like you and me, I mean, our job is to go attract those people that have that desire in their heart and they want to try to find a way to manifest it. Not the people that have no desire and then try to turn them into something.
So if I could get one takeaway from this conversation, Randy, it's that there's going to be a lot of technical changes in the industry. There are a lot of technical changes in the industry. AI and other things are going to create tools for us to use if we want to. But at the end of the day, would you agree with me that really that's all irrelevant if your mindset is right? Yeah.
All irrelevant.
Yeah, all irrelevant. So, because there's a lot of people focused on the fear of what the future is going to do to them. I remember 20-ish years ago, right? Everybody was terrified that the internet was going to take their business away.
Right.
And, after about 6 months to a year, it was like Brigadoon. We all went back to sleep. And 10 or 15 years later, we woke up and go, oh, my God, the internet's going to take our business away. And there was a little, flurry of fear around that. Everybody went back to sleep again. And now it's, we're awaking. It's not every 100 years. It seems like now the cycle of going to sleep and waking back up again is about 5 years. But now everybody's awake going, oh, God, the internet and AI and all this kind of stuff is going to take our business away.
Well, if it's going to take our business away, it's going to take away all business.
Yeah, right.
It'll take away all business. It'll take away everything. We won't need people anymore. So we'll just send them all to the moon or to Mars or something. And see, so that's just virtually not going to happen. So then what will happen is those technologies will help eliminate the same people that everything else has helped eliminate it. Competition eliminates people who don't want to progress. Technologies will eliminate people. Insurance carriers who are sick of putting up with people who don't want to grow and have high loss ratios, they eliminate. So everybody, it's always in the life and death cycle of rebirth and elimination. So the people that are only going to get eliminated are the people that are virtually dead. People who are alive, people who are thinking, they're never going to get eliminated. Never.
Okay. So if I'm a 35-year-old guy and I've got an insurance agency that I just started from scratch because I left, the big alphabet house that acquired one too many non-growth agency, created bureaucracy, and I don't want that anymore. So I'm either starting up from scratch or I just inherited or bought out my family ownership in an agency that's been in business 50 years, but, is sitting in a community, and I want to do something with it. Okay, I want to dream big dreams and have a big future. And I know you teach people how to grow their salespeople. So, you've got an obvious answer here to the question, but I'm asking you to, think outside of that just for a second. What are the 2 or 3 things that I need to do to make sure that I achieve my dreams and goals over the next 3 to 5 years? Kind of what's first and second and third in your mind?
Well, so part of achieving your goal has to do with revenue creation.
Okay.
Right? I mean, isn't it? I mean, how could you get from there to there without creating more revenue?
Right.
So then you go look at what are your resources for creating revenue. Hire more retention. You want higher retention. You want to retain more. There's a process to do that. Cross-sell and get more out of existing customers. There's a process to do that. And then go get more customers. And there's a process to do that. And so why would you want to make it a lot more complicated than I've got 3 tiers. I got to retain more. I got to get more out of those people I retain, and I got to go get more. How am I going to have a higher retention rate? Well, depends on what the mix is like. But there's a service value proposition there that you want to work on. Anyway, you get the point. Same thing with getting new. You reverse engineer it. And then now that then you start and you go.
It's really interesting. I don't talk to very many people who think of this the same way I do. So, I tell agents all the time, when you're building your agency, the first thing you need to think about is retention, not new business. And, you build your client retention strategy first and then work on new business strategy because, you want to keep the business you've already got.
Plus. Here's the big plus. Pardon me for interrupting. Yep. You want to keep what you got. Plus, it's that retention strategy is what you're really selling to go win the business from the other guy. That is
your value proposition. I mean, if you can't keep your customers, you have no value proposition to get new ones. Exactly.
And if your retention strategy is we're local, we're nice people, you don't have a retention strategy.
No.
So. it's got to have look, I told you I went to college 3 days, so nobody can claim me for being arrogant about my language. But somewhere along the way, and I'm happy to tell a story if you want to hear it, but this guy I'm going to tell you a story. I was doing this profile. The first question had some sort of question about, I am highly effective something. I don't know what it was. Rank it on a scale of 1 to 5. Went through, answered all these questions. So I ranked that a 4 on a scale of 5. And then he goes, Mr. Schwantz, you said that you're effective most of the time or something like that. And you ranked it a 4. Why not a 5? Well, I don't know. I don't want to be arrogant, Well, why not a 3? Well, I think I'm better than average. And then he asked me, he said, well, what is effective? And I go, well, effective is being effective. He said, you can't answer the word with word. And he took a dictionary. This is back when we had real dictionaries. He threw it at me. Boom, look it up. And so when you look up the word, and you find out real fast, you can't be effective unless you have a well-defined outcome. So being effective is achieving a well-defined outcome. Boom. After that, I look up everything.
What I really get here is, okay, you got to have the right mindset. You got to dream your own dream. And then, really there's nothing, as Og Mandino, another famous person in sales would say, there's nothing new under the sun. It doesn't change. We use technology, other things come along, the market changes, people change, but the secrets to success don't change.
Right. And part of what is living the words is become a student about what is success, become a student about what is motivated, become a student of what does a producer look like, become a student of all those things, build it. And that's why I was going back to it's kind of tied into retention. Okay. When you sit there and think about what is the secret to retention is differentiation. The secret to winning new business is differentiation. Go look up the word different, look up the word contrast, look up the word juxtapose, and then ask yourself the question, does what I believe and what I say makes us different fit that definition? And if not, you're lying to yourself. You're just pure lying to yourself. And so now you start to, that really becomes the filter by which you put everything through is those definitions. And then that challenges your mind to go grow it to the next level. And you become a thinker about how to go win, retain, and all of this stuff. It's just not that hard in one way.
Right. But let's say that I've got drive and ambition, and I want to build a big life for myself. And I'm coming out of college, and I want to do that. What's the most important thing for me to look forward to and demand and expect out of an agency that I'm going to go be a part of for the next, 5, 10, 20 years of my life? What does that look like?
Well, I would think of a cooperative culture where there's energy around us helping each other figure out how to win and go beat and grow. Because we know they're all those guys out there are the enemy. And the more you have a cooperative culture and you come into that, then you're gonna get induced to the Kool-Aid of making things happen and helping other people make things happen, because you can't do it alone. So that's one thing I'd be looking up. Then the second I'd be looking for is, do they have, what I'm going to think of as a growth playbook that I can then get into that playbook. I want it black and white enough to where I can learn it. And I want something that has been proven. I don't, and so I go back and look at a Saban as an example. Saban has a playbook. He brings people in. They watch film. They study the playbook. They get on the field. They run through the plays. They hit each other. They do things. It's a cooperative culture, all with the intent that we want to build champions. And if you got enough champion people on the team, you'll probably win a championship. Yep. That's how Saban plays. So if you had a culture that developed champions, you had a playbook by how it's done, so that you could come in there and you could get on that path, you can learn. They've got differentiation, they got training, there's a certain level of accountability, there are sales meetings that make me better, then the chances are you found yourself a great place. If I went in there and they go, come on in, Tony. Look, man, we treat you like a professional. You get your license, you come in here and you do what you want to do. It's up to you to be successful. I would run like hell. Run.
Yeah, see, I think that's very important. And I hope that if anybody stuck with us this long in this conversation really takes this away, is that, there's only one or two things you're really, really good at, maybe three. Everything else you're kind of, you're okay at it. Maybe you're real, but it's not your gift. So if you put all your time and effort into developing your craft as a salesperson, everything that takes away from time in front of a customer or prospect in selling is a waste of your time. It's like, I tell people, your time isn't worth anything till you run out of it. And then when you do, you've got to count the cost, because then you want to say, if you're making $300 an hour, everything under $300 an hour, you need to be hiring somebody else to do. And yet most producers don't think this way.
And once again, I mean, we all get to thank Dan for his influence on us in that regard. I remember first time I heard of Dan Sullivan, I got on his website. He sent me a big old videotape. And all I remember him saying is hitting the glass ceiling. Yep. And then he said this phrase: you can't make $100,000 a year doing $12 an hour work. Yeah, you got to get that stuff off your plate. And when you get the big commission, then you get no help and you're stuck. You're just purely stuck. Most producers do not know, because they're not, think about it. When we grew up, our parents said, don't talk about money. If you have no money, my dad would say, and we didn't have any money, that rich guy, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like you. Don't be intimidated by him. If you do have money, the rich father tells his son, don't talk about money, because they're going to try to take it from you. So however you look at it, people don't talk about money. It's just the taboo thing. Well, you get into an agency environment, who's talking to the producer, making them think about, it's not how big your book of business is. It's not how much you make. As a producer, it's how much you save that creates wealth. And if you don't build a book of business big enough to where you can save $50,000, $60,000 a year at the minimum, for a minimum of 20-year period of time at something like 6 or 7% interest rate, if you do that, you'll have $2 million plus in your retirement account. But I'm telling you, Tony, out of the 6 or 7 or 1,000 agents that I've trained, there's less than probably 10% at the top that are doing that. And there's 90% are not, and they have no influence in their life, challenging them to think about that. So now when I come back to, if I'm an agency owner, you know what I'm selling? I'm selling, go talk to every shop around here and get to know who they are and what they do. Interview them hard. Tell them you're interested. And then come back and let's talk again. Now, why I want them to go interview everybody, so that they'll see how mediocre everybody is. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, ask about the sales platform, ask about the differentiation, ask about the culture, ask about how they help, ask about all that sort of stuff. Because I'm telling you, I got a platform I got it all mapped out for you. And then when they come back that second time, then I'm going to lay out how, and I think it's true, I'm committed to helping you leave this industry a multimillionaire. Nobody else is even talking about it. Nobody else even cares. Agency owners care about themselves, not about their team. And that team is what's going to make the agency owner wealthy.
Let me wrap up by asking just a couple of quick questions about how you might be able to influence the thinking of the insurance agency owner that's out there. Again, it's a guy that just inherited his family agency, or the guy that just started the agency and really wants to do something significant and special with that. So you've written 5 books, and you do sales coaching. And of the 5 books, where should somebody start? Get on Amazon, read this book by Randy. Which one?
Yeah, I would read that one right there, Agency Growth Machine.
Okay.
In fact, if you go to my website, thewedge.net, okay, there's a place you can go get a digital copy for free, or you can buy it if you want. You can do either one. It doesn't matter to me.
I don't know how you feel about this, and if this is what drives you. I mean, obviously, somebody reads your book, they're going to be maybe influenced to reach out to you. But the flip side is, I'll bet you agree with this, which is we all stand on somebody else's shoulders. And so, you want to help people whether you get anything out of it or not, right? Yeah. You're standing on somebody's shoulders. Yeah.
So, I mean, if 100 people get it and read it, 2 people will be the kind of people that I want to attract. Because, yep. Yeah. So, but in that book, notice I'm saying, go get the book, because it lays it out. It lays out what I've deemed the 5 steps to extraordinary growth. And number 1 is, it's very simple. You got to commit to growth. That's what you're talking about. You got to commit to growth. It's a mindset. You got to commit to it. And I ask this question like, is there anything you've ever committed to that you don't have? And the answer is always no. Always no. The biggest reason agency owners don't grow is they never committed to it. They're just trying stuff. That's part number one. Part number two is commit to helping every producer you got double their personal income. Help them make twice as much money. Okay. When you start to focus inside out, helping them do that, and there's going to be some that don't want to because they're afraid and we think they're content, but they're really all they're working out of is fear, right?
Right.
In almost every case. So that's number one. Step number two, then install a playbook. You can't go teach, coach, train unless you got a playbook. And most of them don't have a playbook. They say they do, but they're gently lying to themselves because when I say show it to me, they can't. So if you don't have a playbook in writing, you don't have a playbook. Number three, once you got a playbook, you got to train. If you're my wide receiver, if you're my tight end, if you're my running back, here's the playbook. Tony, when we call this play, I'm going to hand you the ball. You're going to run right over the guard and you're going to go do that. Or I call another play. My tight end, you're going to go down about 8 yards plant and go out at 45 degree. And I'm going to have a ball there to you on your third step. We've timed it out. We know it's going to be 6 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. Playbook. But if you don't have the skill to come off the line, plant, and go that way, the ball's not going to be where you're supposed to. So if we don't train, people will never build the skills. If they don't have the skills, they don't have the confidence. They don't have the confidence. They won't knock on big doors. They won't do big things. Training builds confidence. And so when agency owners ask producers, would you like to get better at this? And they go, well, not really. I think we're fine. Then the tail is wagging the dog.
Right.
And it's like I'm saying, it's like I'm telling people all the time, it's like, quit getting buy-in from producers, lead them. So part of leading them is train them. Next is then drive behaviors, certain behaviors, prospecting behaviors, selling behaviors. You got to drive those behaviors. You got kids, I got kids. We trained our kids to be polite, to do the homework, to make up their beds, all that stuff. We train them to do that. But if we didn't drive the accountability, they still wouldn't because they're humans. Right. So you got to drive those behaviors. And then the last is create a culture of accountability. And we lay down what we call the 3 C's of accountability. And everybody's afraid of that. So when agency owners are working out of fear, they're already pre-crushed. When you work out of future, hope, optimism, what I desire, and you're willing to adapt, you'll go grow it. And that book lays out everything that you ought to do.
Okay. I'm going to go and buy myself a copy of Agency Growth Machine because I haven't read that one yet. And I appreciate you previewing it and introducing it to me. But I think I'm going to recognize a lot of stuff when I'm reading it. So I'm really excited to do that. Randy, I really appreciate you joining me today. I mean, again, you were influential in my early career as an insurance producer, my thinking around the way I wanted to run an insurance agency and an organization. And so I want to say, again, thank you for that. But I want to really say thank you today for, driving home this point, which is, the future is scary. So what? It's going to be fine. Nothing really that matters is going to change. And it's mindset, commitment, hard work, practice training, and all the things we've been talking about that make you successful 10 years ago, today, and into the future. So thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm talking to independent agency owners about this all the time. If you'd like to have a more personalized conversation, click on the button or the link in the description, and we'll make that happen. You can also reach out to me at tonycaldwell.net/contact.